The transport shuttle shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, and Kira pressed her crystalline face against the viewport with growing horror. Below them stretched a world of violent blue oceans and swirling white clouds, all bathed in the harsh radiation of a yellow star. Her delicate Altarian biology screamed warnings about the toxic environment waiting below. "This is madness," whispered Tomas, his forearms clicking nervously as his compound eyes tracked the descending altitude. Readings. The Rigelian engineer had spent weeks calculating survival probabilities for this mission, and none of them were encouraging. Nex remained silent, but his natural armor plating had darkened to a deep purple, a sure sign of stress among his Centaurian people. The warrior scholar prided himself on facing any challenge, but even he felt uneasy about visiting the infamous Deathworld that had somehow produced a spacefaring civilization. The Galactic Education Consortium had announced the exchange, programmed 6 months ago, calling it a historic opportunity to study Earth's unique evolutionary path. Most species viewed it as a dangerous publicity stunt. After all, Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, with gravity nearly twice the galactic standard, an atmosphere containing the highly reactive gas oxygen, and weather patterns so violent they could destroy cities. Yet somehow, impossibly, the bipedal mammals called humans had not only survived on this hostile rock, but had developed technology advanced enough to join the galactic community. The scientific implications were staggering, which was why Kira had volunteered despite her family's protests. The shuttle touched down at what the humans called Denver Spaceport, though it looked more like a military fortress than a civilian facility. Through the reinforced windows, Kira could see human workers moving around in nothing but thin fabric coverings, completely exposed to the lethal environment. They seemed unaware that they were performing what should have been a heavily suited operation in hazardous conditions. "Environmental suits, everyone," Thomas announced, though they had already been wearing them since leaving the orbital station. The suits were bulky, uncomfortable, and would need constant monitoring, but they were the only thing standing between them and certain death on this nightmare world. The airlock cycled, and they stepped onto the surface of Earth for the first time. The gravity hit them like a physical blow. Kira stumbled, her lightweight Altarian frame not built for such crushing force. Tomas managed better with his lower center of gravity, but his breathing was already labored. Only Nex seemed relatively unaffected, though his movements were noticeably slower and more deliberate. A young human approached them with what their translation devices identified as a smile, though the baring of teeth seemed threatening to their alien sensibilities. The human was small by galactic standards, perhaps 1.7 meters tall and seemingly fragile, but moved with an easy confidence that somehow felt dangerous. "Hey there! I'm Sam, your student liaison," the human said, its voice cheerful and bright. "Welcome to Earth. I'm so excited to show you around. We've got such cool stuff planned for you guys." Kira exchanged glances with her companions. The humans' casual attitude toward their surroundings was deeply unsettling. They were standing on a world that should have been uninhabitable, yet this young creature acted as if they were at a pleasant vacation destination. "We appreciate your welcome," Kira managed, her voice synthesizer converting her crystalline harmonic speech into human audible frequencies. "However, we must express concern about the environmental conditions. Our readings indicate dangerous levels of atmospheric reactivity and gravitational stress." Sam laughed, a sound that made all 3 aliens flinch. "Oh, don't worry about that. Today's actually really nice. The weather forecast said it might hit 25 degrees Celsius, and there's only a 15% chance of precipitation. Perfect. Spring weather!" The aliens stared in horror. 25 degrees was hot enough to cook food on their homeworlds, and this human was calling it pleasant. Worse, it seemed happy about the possibility of water falling from the sky, which would be considered a natural disaster requiring emergency shelter on any civilized world. Sam led them to what it called a ground vehicle, though it looked more like an armored personnel carrier to their eyes. As they traveled through the human settlement of Denver, the aliens documented everything with growing alarm. Humans walked freely on open streets with no protective gear whatsoever. They had built structures with large, transparent panels that offered no protection from the hostile environment. Some humans were even engaged in recreational activities outdoors, deliberately exposing themselves to the deadly solar radiation. "So you guys are here to study at Jefferson High School, right?" Sam chatted as it navigated through traffic that would have been considered recklessly dangerous on any other world. "That's my school, too. I'm a senior, so I can show you all the best spots. We've got this awesome cafeteria that serves pizza on Fridays, and our football team just made it to state championships." Kira tried to process this information. They were being enrolled in what appeared to be a standard educational facility, not the specialized research environment they had expected. Moreover, the humans seemed to engage in ritualized combat as entertainment, which explained much about their species' violent reputation. The school building itself was another shock. It was a sprawling complex with no defensive barriers, multiple ground-level entrances, and those same dangerous transparent panels everywhere. Human Young moved freely between buildings, laughing and shouting with no apparent awareness of the risks they faced simply by existing in this environment. "Here's your schedule," Sam said, handing them each a data pad. "You've got first period history with Mr. Rodriguez, then biology with Ms. Chen, followed by physical education with Coach Williams. Oh, and you're all signed up for our weekend camping trip to Rocky Mountain National Park. It's gonna be so much fun." The aliens stared at their schedules in growing panic. They were expected to participate in normal human educational activities, including something called physical education that sounded ominously like combat training. Worse, they were apparently scheduled for a survival expedition in what the humans casually referred to as a national park, as if spending time in untamed wilderness was a recreational activity. As the first day progressed, the reality of their situation became clear. They weren't here to study humans from a safe distance. They were expected to live among them, to participate in their daily routines, and to somehow survive in conditions that should have killed them within hours. That evening, as they huddled, in their assigned dormitory room with its inadequate environmental controls and terrifyingly large windows, the three aliens filed their first report to the Galactic Education Consortium. "Request immediate extraction," Kira transmitted. "Conditions unsurvivable. Human settlement lacks basic safety protocols. Local inhabitants display signs of severe psychological adaptation to hostile environment, possibly indicating species-wide delusional disorder. Recommend immediate quarantine of Earth system pending psychological evaluation of entire human population." The response came back within hours. "Request denied. Cultural exchange of utmost importance to galactic relations. Adapt and continue mission. Academic credit depends on completion of full semester." The aliens stared at the message in disbelief. They were trapped on a death world with creatures so adapted to danger that they no longer recognized it, and their own people expected them to somehow survive the experience. Outside their window, they could hear Human Young engaging in what their translation systems identified as recreational activities, completely unaware that they were living on a world that should have been classified as uninhabitable. The sound of their laughter echoed through the night like the cries of creatures who had forgotten how to fear. The morning alarm buzzed at what humans called 6 o'clock, though the aliens had barely managed 3 hours of fitful sleep. Their environmental suits had worked overtime through the night, struggling to maintain safe atmospheric conditions in the poorly sealed dormitory room. Kira's crystalline structure had dulled from stress, while Thomas kept checking his biomonitors every few minutes. Nex had spent most of the night standing guard by the window, convinced that the lack of proper security meant imminent attack by local predators. Sam appeared at their door with the same disturbing enthusiasm as the previous day. "Morning, guys." Ready for your first full day of classes? I brought you some breakfast from the cafeteria. The alien stared in horror at the tray Sam carried. The food items were completely unpackaged, with no sterility seals or contamination barriers. Worse, some of the items were still steaming, indicating they were served at temperatures that would cause severe burns to most galactic species. Thank you, but we have our own nutrition supplies, Kira managed diplomatically, while internally calculating the probability of surviving food poisoning from consuming unprocessed Deathworld organic matter. Sam shrugged, seemingly unbothered by their rejection. No problem. More for me. The human then proceeded to consume what appeared to be cooked animal flesh and heated plant matter without any apparent concern for toxins or parasites. Their first class was something called World History, taught by a human designated as Mr. Rodriguez. The classroom itself was another study in human recklessness. Thin walls, multiple exits that could allow predator infiltration, and no emergency lockdown procedures visible anywhere. Today we're starting our unit on 20th century global conflicts, Mr. Rodriguez announced to the mixed group of human and alien students. Can anyone tell me the estimated casualties from World War II? A human student raised its hand. Around 75 million people died, right? The aliens froze. 75 million deaths in a single conflict? On their homeworlds, wars typically resulted in hundreds or perhaps thousands of casualties before peace negotiations began. The idea of a species continuing to fight after losing millions of members was incomprehensible. That's in the right range, Mr. Rodriguez confirmed. Now, who can tell me how long this conflict lasted? 6 years. Another human answered casually. Kira's translation device must have malfunctioned. Surely no species could sustain such massive casualties over such an extended period and still continue fighting. She raised her hand, tentatively. Excuse me, but could you clarify the casualty figures? Did you mean 75,000? The human teacher smiled that disturbing expression again. No, 75 million. Some estimates go as high as 85 million when you include civilian deaths from disease and starvation. And this was just one war? Tomas asked, his voice barely a whisper. Oh no, we've had lots of wars, Sam chimed in helpfully. World War I killed about 20 million people. The Napoleonic Wars killed around 7 million. The American Civil War killed over 500,000 Americans alone, and that's not even counting all the smaller conflicts happening all the time. Aliens sat in stunned silence as the human students discussed mass death with the same casual tone they might use to describe the weather. These creatures had not only survived on a death world, but had spent their entire evolutionary history killing each other in numbers that would constitute genocide on any civilized planet. The next class was biology with Ms. Chen, and if anything, it was worse. The human teacher began by explaining something called the food chain, which appeared to describe a system where organisms consumed each other for survival. This was disturbing enough, but then she moved on to human biology specifically. Humans are classified as persistence hunters, Ms. Chen explained, displaying an image of early humans chasing what appeared to be a large herbivore across an open plain. Our ancestors would chase prey animals for hours or even days until the Yahobi prey collapsed from exhaustion. Nex's armor had gone completely black. In galactic civilization, persistence hunting was considered a myth, a theoretical hunting strategy so horrifically effective that most scientists refused to believe any species could actually employ it. The idea of being slowly chased to death over days while the predator calmly followed behind was the stuff of nightmares. But surely modern humans don't still do this, Kira asked desperately. Sam laughed again. Well, not for hunting anymore, but we still do persistence running for fun. I ran a marathon last month. That's over 42 kilometers. Some people run ultra-marathons that go for over 100 kilometers. The aliens couldn't speak. This young human had voluntarily engaged in persistence hunting behavior as a recreational activity. They watched in growing horror as Ms. Chen showed videos of humans running for hours across various terrains, their faces showing what their translation devices identified as enjoyment. The true nightmare began with physical education. Coach Williams was a large human who seemed to take sadistic pleasure in what followed. All right, everyone. Today we're starting with a warm-up. 3 laps around the track, then we'll move on to some basic strength training. The track was a 400-meter oval of processed material surrounding an open field. The human students began running around it at a pace that would have been considered dangerously fast on most worlds. Sam jogged beside the aliens, chatting casually while maintaining a speed that had them gasping for breath within minutes. "This is just the warm-up," Sam explained cheerfully. "Wait until you see what we do for the actual workout. Coach Williams is pretty easy on us usually, but last week we did this awesome obstacle course that had rope climbing and tire flipping. By the time they completed 1 lap, all 3 aliens were exhausted. Their environmental suits were working at maximum capacity to regulate their body temperatures and maintain proper atmospheric mix. Tomas had activated his emergency oxygen reserves while Kira's crystalline structure was fracturing from the stress. But the humans weren't even breathing hard. In fact, several of them seemed disappointed that they were only doing 3 laps. The strength training was even worse. Coach Williams demonstrated something called push-ups, where humans supported their entire body weight on their arms while repeatedly lowering and raising themselves. The aliens watched in fascination and terror as even the smallest human students performed multiple repetitions of this feat. "Your turn," Coach Williams announced. Nex, despite his warrior background, managed exactly 1 push-up before his armor cracked under the strain. Tomas couldn't even attempt one, lacking the bone density to support his weight in Earth's crushing gravity. Kira tried to explain that her crystalline biology wasn't designed for such stress, but the coach seemed to think she was making excuses. The day's final revelation came during lunch. The aliens sat in the cafeteria watching in morbid fascination as humans consumed enormous quantities of food. They ate things that were still identifiably parts of dead animals, plants that had been chemically altered with heat and additives, and liquids that contained enough sugar to trigger diabetic shock in most galactic species. But it was the casual conversation that truly disturbed them. Human students discussed their weekend plans with the same enthusiasm they might show for entertainment. One group was planning to climb a mountain, despite the obvious risks of altitude sickness, exposure, and falling. Another group was excited about something called whitewater rafting, which seemed to involve deliberately placing themselves in fast-moving water that could easily kill them. "What do you guys like to do for fun on your homeworlds?" Sam asked innocently. Kira tried to think of an equivalent. "We enjoy contemplating crystal formations in climate-controlled environments," she said finally. "Oh, like geology? That's cool. We have some awesome hiking trails around here where you can see really old rock formations. Maybe we could go rock hounding this weekend." The aliens realized with growing horror that humans had somehow turned every potentially dangerous activity into a form of entertainment. They didn't just survive on their death world, they actively sought out additional risks for pleasure. As the day ended, they huddled in their dormitory room again, trying to process what they had learned. These creatures had evolved not just to survive in impossible conditions, but to thrive on challenges that would terrify most galactic civilizations. They fought wars that would exterminate entire species on other worlds, then continued fighting more wars. They engaged in persistence, hunting as recreation. They consumed dangerous substances for pleasure and deliberately exposed themselves to unnecessary risks as a form of social bonding. Thomas was the first to voice what they were all thinking. "I don't think we're studying a primitive civilization that somehow achieved spaceflight. I think we're studying something much more dangerous." Outside their window, they could hear the sounds of human recreational activities continuing long into the night, completely unaware that they were living. lifestyles that would be considered criminally reckless by every other known species in the galaxy. The Galactic Education Consortium's response to their detailed reports had been frustratingly dismissive. Officials claimed the aliens were experiencing culture shock and recommended they try to embrace the human educational experience more fully, as if embracing potential death was a reasonable educational strategy. It was Friday afternoon when Sam bounded into their shared study session with news that made their environmental suit's emergency systems start beeping. "Great news, guys! I talked to my parents and they said you can come on our family camping trip this weekend. We're going to Rocky Mountain National Park." Kira's crystalline form actually cracked audibly. "Camping? As in, sleeping outdoors?" "Yeah. It's gonna be so awesome. We'll hike up to Bear Lake, set up tents, make s'mores around a campfire, and sleep under the stars. My dad says the weather's perfect for it, too. Only supposed to drop to about 5 degrees Celsius at night." The aliens stared at each other in mutual horror. 5 degrees was below the freezing point of water on most worlds. These humans were planning to spend the night in sub-freezing temperatures, in the open wilderness, surrounded by unknown predators, as a recreational activity. "Perhaps we should remain at the school for additional studies," Nex suggested diplomatically, though his armor had shifted to the deep purple that indicated panic among his people. "Nonsense," Sam declared. "This is the perfect chance for you to see real Earth nature. Besides, my mom already bought extra sleeping bags rated for your environmental suits. She's super excited to meet real aliens." The concept of sleeping bags rated for environmental suits suggested that humans had somehow weaponized the very act of sleeping, turning it into another survival challenge. Before the aliens could formulate a polite refusal, Sam had already sent confirmations to both their human guardians and the school administration. Saturday morning arrived with the horrifying efficiency that seemed to characterize all human disasters. Sam's family vehicle was a massive metal beast loaded with enough equipment to support a small military expedition. The aliens climbed in with the grim resignation of soldiers heading to a dangerous mission. Sam's parents turned out to be even more disturbing than their offspring. They greeted the aliens with the same tooth-baring expression Sam used, then began discussing their planned route as if they were describing a pleasant walk instead of a journey into untamed wilderness. "We'll take the trail up from the parking area," Sam's father explained, while piloting the vehicle up roads that seemed designed to test the limits of gravitational physics. "It's only about 5 kilometers to the lake with about 150 meters of elevation gain. Pretty easy hike." Easy. These humans considered climbing 150 meters while carrying survival equipment across 5 kilometers of rough terrain to be easy. Ondai. Their homeworlds, such a journey would require professional guides, emergency backup teams, and extensive safety preparations. The trailhead parking area was their first glimpse of the true insanity of human recreational behavior. Dozens of other vehicles were present, meaning dozens of other human families had decided to risk their lives in the wilderness for fun. Children ran around unsupervised while their parents loaded backpacks with supplies, completely unaware that they were in the most dangerous environment possible. The trail itself defied every principle of safe travel. It was nothing more than a narrow path of compressed dirt and loose rocks, winding upward through dense forest that could conceal any number of predators. There were no safety barriers, no emergency communication stations, and no medical facilities visible anywhere. "Isn't this beautiful?" Sam asked as they began climbing, her breathing barely affected by the increased exertion and altitude. "I love how quiet it is out here. Sometimes you can go hours without seeing another person." Hours without seeing another person. The humans actively sought out isolation in hostile territory as a desirable feature of their recreational activities. The aliens trudged behind, their suits working overtime to compensate for the thin atmosphere and irregular terrain. The forest around them was full of sounds that their translation systems couldn't identify. Rustling in the undergrowth, calls, from unseen creatures, and the occasional crack of breaking branches that suggested large mobile organisms nearby. Yet the humans walked through this acoustic landscape of potential threats with the same casual confidence they showed everywhere else. "Oh, look! Bear tracks!" Sam's mother announced cheerfully, pointing to impressions in the soft earth beside. The trail, bear tracks, evidence of the passage of large predators, and the humans were excited about it. Nex immediately activated his armor's defensive protocols, while Thomas began scanning for escape routes. Kira's crystalline structure shifted to its most protective configuration. "Don't worry," Sam laughed, noticing their obvious distress. "Black bears are pretty harmless. They're more scared of us than we are of them. Besides, we make plenty of noise, so they'll avoid us." More scared of them than they were of the bears. A 200-kilogram apex predator with natural weapons was reportedly afraid of these small bipedal mammals. The logic was so backward that the aliens' translation systems began throwing error messages. They reached Bear Lake as the sun began to set, and the true nightmare of human camping became clear. The humans began setting up temporary shelters that offered no more protection than cloth barriers between them and the hostile environment. They started fires using combustible materials, creating light and smoke that would attract every predator within kilometers. "Isn't this great?" Sam asked, as they arranged rocks in a circle for their campfire. "Nothing beats sleeping outdoors under a clear sky. You can see so many stars up here." The aliens huddled together in their reinforced shelter, monitoring their suits' power levels and wondering how long their life support would last. Outside, they could hear the humans laughing and singing around their fire, completely unaware that they were broadcasting their location to every dangerous creature in the area. The temperature dropped as predicted, and frost began forming on their shelter walls. Yet somehow, impossibly, the humans seemed comfortable in their cloth barriers, despite being exposed to conditions that should have resulted in hypothermia and death. It was near midnight when the bear arrived. The aliens' motion sensors detected the large life form approaching their campsite long before the humans noticed anything. It was massive. Their scanners indicated approximately 180 kilograms of muscle and bone, moving with the fluid grace of a natural predator. All three aliens activated their emergency beacon systems and prepared for certain death. The bear emerged from the tree line and approached their camping area with obvious interest in the food smells and human activity. This was it. They were about to witness the gruesome end of an entire human family and possibly become victims themselves. Sam woke first, noticed the bear, and did something that broke every principle of survival behavior the aliens had ever learned. She sat up calmly, picked up 2 metal pots, and began banging them together while shouting at the top of her lungs. "Hey, bear! Get out of here! Go on! Shoo!" The massive predator stopped, looked at the small human making noise at it, and then did something impossible. It turned around and walked away. A 180-kilogram apex predator had been scared off by a 60-kilogram human with kitchen equipment. The aliens sat in stunned silence as Sam's family settled back into sleep, completely unconcerned about the encounter. Their worldview was cracking apart like Kira's crystalline structure under stress. Everything they thought they knew about predator-prey relationships had just been turned upside down. "How?" Tomas whispered finally. "How did that work?" Sam overheard him. "Oh, bears around here learned a long time ago to avoid humans. We killed most of the dangerous ones centuries ago, and the smart ones figured out that we're more trouble than we're worth. They know we'll fight back. They'll fight back." These small, seemingly defenseless mammals had eliminated the large predators from their environment through violence, and the survivors had learned to fear them. The aliens were beginning to understand a horrible truth about their hosts. They weren't camping with primitive mammals who had somehow learned to survive on a death world. They were camping with the apex predator that had conquered the death world so completely that everything else was afraid of them. The rest of the night passed in sleepless terror as the aliens processed this revelation. Outside their shelter, the humans slept peacefully in the wilderness that belonged to them, unafraid because there was nothing left on their world dangerous enough to threaten them. They were the danger that everything else avoided. The return from the camping trip marked a fundamental shift in how the aliens viewed their human hosts. What they had initially dismissed as primitive behavior now revealed itself as something far more sophisticated and terrifying. They began observing humans through an entirely different lens, not as barely evolved mammals, but as the dominant predator species of a world that had shaped them into perfect killing machines. Monday morning brought their first human biology class since the revelation, and Dr. Patterson's lecture felt like a catalog of predatory adaptations. The aliens sat in horrified fascination as she described the human visual system. Human eyes face forward, providing excellent depth perception and the ability to track moving objects, Dr. Patterson explained, unknowingly describing classic predator characteristics. Our color vision evolved primarily to detect ripe fruit and spot prey animals against foliage. Kira took notes with shaking hands. Forward-facing eyes were the hallmark of hunters throughout the galaxy. Prey species had eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for danger from all directions. The fact that humans had predator eyes should have been obvious from the moment they met Sam. Now let's talk about human teeth, Dr. Patterson continued, displaying a diagram that made Nex's armor go completely black. We have sharp canines for tearing meat combined with flat molars for grinding plant matter. This combination makes us omnivores, capable of surviving on almost any available food source. Omnivores. The aliens exchanged glances of dawning horror. Specialized predators could be avoided by staying away from their preferred prey, but omnivores would eat anything that moved. Humans were biological opportunists, capable of consuming whatever was available to survive. But the most disturbing revelation came when Sam raised her hand. Dr. Patterson, is it true that humans can track wounded animals by following blood trails? Absolutely, the teacher replied with enthusiasm. Early humans were persistence hunters who could follow injured prey for days. Our sense of smell isn't as acute as some animals, but we're excellent at visual tracking. We can follow disturbed vegetation, broken branches, blood drops, and even partial footprints across varied terrain. The aliens realized they were learning about pursuit predation from creatures who had perfected it millions of years ago. Every human in the classroom possessed the genetic memory of ancestors who had chased prey animals to exhaustion across vast distances, never stopping, never giving up until their target collapsed from fear and fatigue. Physical education had become a different kind of horror now that they understood what they were witnessing. Coach Williams announced that today's activity would be team sports, specifically something called Capture the Flag. The aliens watched in fascination as the human students immediately began displaying pack hunting behaviors. They formed coordinated groups, assigned roles based on individual strengths, developed complex strategies for territorial control, and executed coordinated attacks on opposing teams. What appeared to be a simple game was actually ritualized warfare, with humans practicing the same tactical thinking that had made them the dominant species on their planet. Blue Team, your objective is to penetrate enemy territory, acquire the target, and return to base, Coach Williams announced. Red Team, defend your territory using any legal means necessary. Legal means necessary. Even their recreational activities had evolved to include violence within acceptable parameters. The aliens watched as human teenagers engaged in mock battles with the same intensity their ancestors had probably shown when hunting mammoth or defending territory from rival tribes. During lunch, they observed human social dynamics with new understanding. The cafeteria wasn't just a feeding area. It was a complex social hierarchy where humans practiced the same dominance behaviors found in pack predators throughout the galaxy. Popular students held the best territories, weaker individuals were pushed to less desirable areas, and resources were distributed based on social status. "Hey guys, want to come watch the football game Friday night?" Sam asked, interrupting their anthropological observations. "It's our homecoming game, so the whole school will be there." Football. The aliens had researched this human activity after hearing about it repeatedly. It was ritualized warfare between two groups of armored humans, fighting for control of territory while thousands of other humans watched and cheered. The fact that this was considered entertainment revealed something profound about human psychology. That Friday night, they attended their first football game and witnessed something that would haunt their dreams for years. The stadium was packed, with thousands of humans all focused on the conflict playing out on the field below. The noise was overwhelming. Coordinated chanting, rhythmic clapping, and roars of approval that reminded the aliens of pack vocalizations. On the field, heavily armored humans engaged in controlled violence, throwing themselves at each other, with bone-crushing force while pursuing a territorial objective. But the truly disturbing part was the crowd's reaction. Every successful attack was met with enthusiastic cheering. Every defensive play that stopped an enemy advance brought the audience to their feet in celebration. "Isn't this exciting?" Sam shouted over the noise. "Look at Johnson make that tackle. He totally destroyed their running back." Destroyed. The humans used vocabulary of violence to describe successful defensive plays, and they were clearly enjoying the spectacle of controlled combat. The aliens realized they were watching thousands of apex predators engaging in their most fundamental pleasure, watching members of their species demonstrate hunting and fighting skills. Between plays, the aliens observed the crowd more carefully. Human children were learning the rules and strategies, absorbing tactical thinking as naturally as they learned language. Teenagers were practicing the same coordinated chanting and group behaviors that would have helped their ancestors coordinate. During hunts, adults were bonding over shared appreciation for violence and territorial dominance. The halftime show featured something called cheerleaders, young humans who performed synchronized movements designed to encourage even more aggressive behavior. From both the team and the audience, their chants were literally battle cries, urging their warriors to crush, destroy, and dominate the enemy team. "Defense! Defense! Make them pay! Stop their advance! Make them pay!" After the game, which their team won by achieving more territorial advances than their opponents, the aliens walked back to their dormitory in stunned silence. The celebration around them continued, humans honking vehicle horns, shouting victory, chants, and displaying the same behaviors that successful predator packs showed after a kill. "That was so awesome!" Sam enthused. "Did you see that final touchdown? Williams just ran right through their defense like they weren't even there. That's why he's getting recruited by college scouts." College scouts. Adult humans were evaluating teenage combat performance for advanced training opportunities. The best young warriors would be selected for higher levels of education based on their demonstrated ability to overcome opposition through superior tactics and physical dominance. In their room that night, the aliens tried to process what they had learned. Human education wasn't just academic instruction, it was warrior training disguised as social development. Physical education taught combat skills. Team sports practiced pack hunting. Academic competition established intellectual dominance hierarchies. Even their recreational activities were preparation for conflict. "We need to revise our reports," Kira said quietly. "Everything we've observed makes sense if we stop thinking of humans as evolved prey animals and start thinking of them as evolved predators." Thomas pulled up his biological analysis files. "Look at this data differently. High bone density for impact resistance, efficient cardiovascular systems for endurance pursuit, binocular vision for tracking moving targets, opposable thumbs for tool creation and weapon manipulation, cooperative social structures for pack hunting. They're not mammals who accidentally achieved sentience. They're purpose-built predators who developed intelligence to become better hunters." Nex's armor, had remained deep purple for days now, but he managed to speak clearly. On my world, we have legends about the perfect warrior, a creature that could hunt anything, adapt to any environment, and never stop pursuing its prey. We always assumed it was mythology. I think we've been living with them. Outside their window, they could hear human students celebrating their victory long into the night. The sounds weren't random noise. They were the coordinated vocalizations of a successful hunting pack, establishing their dominance and strengthening social bonds through shared triumph. The aliens finally understood why every other species in the galaxy had instinctively feared the humans when they first made contact. It wasn't because they were violent or unpredictable. It was because every other species in the galaxy had evolved alongside predators, developing instincts to recognize and avoid apex hunters. Humans were what those instincts were designed to detect. Their final week at the school brought an invitation that should have been routine, but now filled them with existential dread. Sam's family was hosting what humans called a barbecue to celebrate the aliens' completion of their exchange program. After everything they had learned, the aliens understood that they were being invited to witness apex predators engage in their most fundamental social ritual, the communal consumption of defeated prey. The barbecue was held in the backyard of Sam's family home, and the aliens arrived to find a scene that perfectly encapsulated everything terrifying about human social behavior. Multiple families had gathered, and the adults were standing around fires, cooking the flesh of various animals while consuming mild toxins they called beer and wine. The humans called this relaxation. "Welcome to our little going-away party," Sam's mother announced cheerfully, waving a metal implement she was using to flip pieces of meat over open flames. "We've got burgers, hot dogs, grilled chicken, and my famous barbecue ribs. I hope you guys are hungry." The aliens watched in fascination as humans casually handled fire, a force that most galactic species treated with extreme caution. Here, they used it as a cooking tool, standing mere centimeters from open flames while discussing weekend plans and local gossip. The smell of burning organic matter filled the air, and the humans seemed to find it pleasant rather than alarming. Sam bounded over with a plate loaded with charred animal flesh. "You guys have to try my dad's burgers. He makes them with this special seasoning blend that's been in our family for generations." Special seasoning blends passed down through generations. The humans had developed cultural traditions around the preparation and consumption of other species, treating predation as an art form worthy of family heritage and social celebration. The gathering revealed new aspects of human behavior that the aliens had missed in their focused observation of educational environments. Human children ran freely through the yard, playing games that involved chasing, capturing, and mock combat. Their parents encouraged this behavior, laughing when the children successfully tackled each other or demonstrated superior speed and agility. "Kids will be kids," one adult human commented fondly, as a group of youngsters engaged in what appeared to be territorial warfare over control of a playground structure. "It's good for them to burn off that energy." Burning off energy. The humans recognized that their offspring had natural aggressive tendencies that needed regular outlet through physical competition. This wasn't seen as a problem to be corrected, but as a healthy part of development that should be channeled appropriately. As the afternoon progressed, the aliens observed the complex social dynamics of a human gathering. Adults formed groups based on shared interests, with conversations ranging from local politics to recreational activities. But underlying every interaction was a subtle establishment of social hierarchy: who had the most successful career, whose children showed the most promise, who had undertaken the most impressive recreational challenges. "I'm thinking about taking up rock climbing next summer," one human mentioned casually. "There's this great cliff face about 3 hours north of here that's supposed to be perfect for beginners. Rock climbing, deliberately ascending vertical. Stone surfaces with minimal safety equipment for entertainment." The aliens realized that humans actively sought out activities that would be considered emergency survival situations on their homeworlds. "Oh, that sounds fun," another human responded. "My cousin went bungee jumping last month. Jumped off a bridge with just a rope attached to his ankles. He said it was the most amazing rush ever." Bungee jumping. Voluntary falling from great heights while trusting their lives to primitive restraint systems, specifically to experience the physiological effects of mortal terror. The humans had turned their own fight-or-flight responses into recreational drugs. The conversation continued with humans sharing stories of increasingly dangerous activities they had undertaken or planned to undertake. Whitewater rafting through rapids that could crush their fragile bodies. Mountain biking down slopes that would challenge military vehicles. Skiing down mountains at speeds that would be fatal if they lost control. "What kind of adventure sports do you have on your worlds?" Sam asked innocently. Kira tried to think of an equivalent and failed completely. "We have competitive crystal, harmonization in controlled atmospheric chambers," she said finally. The humans nodded politely, but their expressions showed the same disappointment a predator might show when offered vegetables instead of fresh meat. These creatures were hardwired to seek challenge, risk, and the biochemical rewards that came from surviving dangerous situations. As evening approached, the social gathering took on an even more ominous character. The humans brought out additional toxins, stronger alcoholic beverages that would cause immediate organ failure in most galactic species. They consumed these substances while their children continued their mock combat games, completely unaware that they were demonstrating the casual relationship with danger that defined their species. "Here's to our alien friends," Sam's father announced, raising his glass of toxin in what appeared to be a ritual gesture. "Thanks for giving us a chance to show you what Earth is really like." What Earth was really like. The aliens realized with growing horror that everything they had experienced, the casual violence, the recreational risk-taking, the consumption of dangerous substances, the celebration of predatory behaviors, this was considered normal human life. These weren't aberrant behaviors they had accidentally witnessed. This was how apex predators relaxed. The final revelation came when the weather turned threatening. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and the aliens' environmental suits began detecting electromagnetic activity that indicated an approaching storm. Lightning flickered in the distance, and their safety protocols recommended immediate shelter in a reinforced structure. The humans looked up at the threatening sky and smiled. "Looks like we might get a good storm," Sam's mother observed cheerfully. "I love watching lightning from the back porch." Instead of seeking shelter, the humans began rearranging their furniture to get better views of the approaching electrical discharge. They brought their food and drinks outside, settling in to observe a weather phenomenon that would send most galactic species into underground bunkers. The first lightning strike hit less than a kilometer away, illuminating the sky with enough electrical energy to power a small city. The aliens activated their emergency protocols and prepared for evacuation. The humans applauded. "Good one," Sam's father shouted over the thunder. "Looks like it's going to be a real light show tonight." More lightning struck, closer now, and the humans showed no sign of concern. Rain began falling, water dropping from the sky at terminal velocity, and instead of running for cover, some of the humans actually moved out into it, laughing as they were pelted by precipitation that would be considered a natural disaster on any civilized world. "I love summer storms," Sam called out, dancing in the rain while electricity split the sky around her. "There's nothing like it." The aliens huddled in their emergency shelter, watching through reinforced viewports as apex predators celebrated a lightning storm. These creatures were so confident in their position at the top of their world's food chain that they treated lethal weather as entertainment. As the storm intensified, the humans finally moved indoors, but only because the rain was making their food soggy. They continued watching the lightning through large, transparent barriers, pointing out particularly impressive electrical displays and sharing stories of other storms they had enjoyed. "Remember that tornado that came through 5 years ago?" one adult human asked. "That was incredible to watch. Good thing it missed the downtown area." Tornadoes! Rotating columns of air with wind speeds that could destroy buildings, and the humans discussed them like they were interesting wildlife they enjoyed observing. These creatures lived on a world that actively tried to kill them on a regular basis, and they had adapted so completely that they found natural disasters entertaining. The evening wound down with humans sharing more stories of dangerous encounters. They had survived car accidents, animal attacks, natural disasters, and extreme weather events. Each story was told with the same casual tone they might use to describe a pleasant walk, because for humans, surviving mortal danger was so routine it barely rated as conversation. As the aliens prepared to leave, Sam approached them with a final invitation that crystallized everything they had learned. "This was so much fun. You guys should totally come back for winter break. We could go skiing in the mountains, maybe try some ice climbing. Oh, and there's this awesome frozen waterfall that's perfect for winter camping." Winter camping. Deliberately sleeping outdoors in sub-freezing temperatures while participating in recreational activities that involved falling from great heights on frozen water. The humans wanted to share their most dangerous seasonal pastimes, as a gesture of friendship. The aliens politely declined and made their excuses, returning to their dormitory to pack for departure. Their final report to the Galactic Education Consortium would be unlike anything in the organization's history. "Subject species classification requires immediate revision," Kira transmitted as their transport prepared for departure. "Humans are not primitive mammals who achieved spaceflight through luck or accident. They are apex predators who conquered their environment so completely that they seek artificial challenges to replace the natural dangers they eliminated. Recommend extreme caution in future diplomatic relations," Thomas added. "Human behavior. Patterns indicate they view conflict and danger as normal social activities. Their recreational pursuits would be classified as survival training on most worlds." Most disturbing finding, Nex concluded, is that humans appear unaware of their own predatory nature. They have been apex predators for so long that they have forgotten they are dangerous. This makes them unpredictable in ways that traditional predator species are not. As their shuttle lifted off from Earth's surface, the aliens looked down at the world that had fundamentally changed their understanding of galactic civilization. Somewhere below, humans were probably engaging in more dangerous recreational activities, completely unaware that they represented the most successful predator species the galaxy had ever produced. The final entry in their report would echo through galactic politics for decades. Humanity should not be feared because they are savage or warlike. They should be feared because they are survivors who have never learned to fear anything else. The question is not whether they can adapt to galactic civilization. The question is whether galactic civilization can adapt to them. Back on Earth, Sam was already planning her next adventure, completely oblivious to the fact that 3 alien civilizations would soon be revising their first contact protocols based on a high school barbecue in Colorado.